Welcome to In Safe Hands. Tonight, we explore a profound truth. Pain may be inevitable, but suffering doesn't have to be. In his powerful new work, A Good Life, author Jerry Pinto traces the history and misunderstandings surrounding palliative care, opening a conversation about dignity, hope, and humanity, brought to life through readings by two versatile actors. She is an actor, author, and storyteller, having graced our screens with powerful performances, from Rang De Basanti to Mumbai Meri Jaan, and many more acclaimed films. On the page, her sharp wit and thoughtful observations shine in her award-winning book, The Perils of Being Moderately Famous, a creative force now championing women's well-being through her podcast, All About Her. She continues to expand the worlds she builds. Please welcome Soha Ali Khan. He is an actor and producer whose award-winning roles in films like Neerja and Padmavat and the Emmy-nominated series Rocket Boys have made him one of India's most compelling artists. He's also the founder of Wonderful Entertainment and the force behind acclaimed projects such as Sabar Bonda and Crew Cut. Get ready for an evening of bold storytelling with Jim Sarbh. Before we begin, please take a moment now to make sure your phone is on silent. Life is what happens when you shut your phone and look up. Thank you to our ISL interpreters, Tejal and Shabina from Access for All for making our sessions more inclusive. Over to you, Soha and Jim.
Thank you. Chapter 2. Get him to sit up. Dr. Ira Almeida, Project Director of the Palliative Care Unit at South Goa District Hospital, was in her OPD when she saw a young man on a trolley. He had been brought in by his friend, another young man, who was sitting on the bench across from him. The friend had brought the young man there in his taxi and had carried him into the clinic. Dr. Almeida relates this young man's story to me. He was 8 years old. He had gone to some celebration in his school. A large stage had been put up, and when a thunderstorm broke out, he scuttled under the stage, which collapsed on him, and he was paralyzed. He told us he had been bedbound since then. When I was checking him over, I asked him if he could lift his head. He could. We found he had control over the upper half of his body. I asked him to sit up, and he said he couldn't. See, I have this, he said. He had undergone a suprapubic cystostomy, which drains urine from the body. Instead of draining it through the penis, a tube is inserted above the pubic bone because this sometimes does a better job of draining the urine when the bladder is not emptying well. He said, I have come to have the tube changed. If I sit up, it will get blocked. This was not true. But someone had told him that this might happen, or had left him with the impression that this might happen. And so, it was now a fixed idea in his head. I told Sudha, the nurse, and Sunali, the occupational therapist on our team, your first job is to get him to sit up. Dr. Almeida continues her story. The team persuaded him to let them visit him at his home by saying that they would change his tube themselves. This would spare him the day's journey, and his friend would not have to give up his earnings to bring him to the OPD. When we visited his home, we saw that he was living in quite a terrible condition. He would be lying in a bed in a room all day, staring at the walls. His mother grew and sold vegetables for a living, so she was out most of the day. It took a while for trust to grow, but eventually, the team did get him to sit up. The next step was to get him into a wheelchair. Now, no longer bedbound, he gets about the house and even helps his mother with her work. We wanted to get him out of the house, but the wheelchair would not fit through the door. So we're trying to organize a child's wheelchair so that he can get out to the front of the house. The house does not have a ramp, of course. I am going to try and get one of my builder friends to build a ramp there. For Lizzie, a medical social worker, the next goal is to get the young man to start earning. He will be making envelopes, which we will get decorated and sell at our office or at Christmas bazaars, wherever we can get them in, she tells me. To my mind, this story illustrates many of the most important aspects of palliative care. To begin with, it negates the commonly held myth that palliative care is meant only for those who have cancer, and even within that group, for those who are terminal, with just a few weeks or months to live. The young man in this story did not suffer from cancer. He was paralyzed and unable to take care of himself independently. Palliative care, therefore, is about any of several life-limiting and life-threatening diseases. Its ambit can take in the infant, the adolescent, and the senescent. Its arc can run over decades. Next, the story illustrates the 5 main precepts that guide palliative care, which are the principles that also guide or should guide medical practice. They are, first, to find ways to increase patient autonomy, to respect the patient as a person. Second, to remember beneficence, the call to do good. Third, to be guided by the principle of non-malfeasance, to minimize harm in all interventions. Fourth, to be directed by practicing justice in ensuring the fair use of available resources. And lastly, to demonstrate collaboration, to build an ecosystem of care and involve other professionals in the care of the patient and the family. Patient autonomy requires those who are trying to help someone to ask what he or she wants. The young man's decision was clear and absolute. He preferred to keep lying down in his misery, convinced that he would be worse off sitting up. Now, the onus was on the palliative care team to reassure him otherwise and make that happen.
The rehabilitation specialists. If there is a human attribute that we only notice when it has been denied to us, it is dignity. This is an elusive concept because it is so specific to cultural contexts and depends on what one has been used to. But there are some elements common to us all, and physical independence seems to be paramount. To get out of and into bed unaided, to be able to walk, to be alone for a while without raising undue alarm, to attend to one's body in the privacy of a toilet, to not be a burden on anyone, to have control of one's own time, to sleep when one wants to, and wake up when one chooses, to cook for oneself and to feed others, to go each day to one's place of worship or to meet a friend, to communicate one's thoughts and feelings to others, to have a conversation that is not about illness, to go back to work and earn a living, to drape oneself in a sari. These are a sampling of what patients across the country told me that dignity meant to them. In some of these, you may feel a resonance somewhere, a feeling of, yes, yes, I agree. In others, you will hear the pangs of loss and see how they are memories for what the patient could once do and took for granted. This is where the speech therapist, the occupational therapist, and the physiotherapist come in. When I visit the Homi Bhabha Cancer Hospital and Research Center in Visakhapatnam, I find Dr. Vidya Vishwanath has organized a show and tell with the occupational therapist, Subhashmita. The latter had complained that the doctors on her team were not referring patients to her, and Dr. Vishwanath rightly assumed that this might simply be a matter of doctors not knowing how an occupational therapist might be able to help their patients. In comparison, speech therapy and physiotherapy seem self-explanatory. The occupational therapist brings up ways of helping the patients recover their lost sense of dignity. Does a patient have a tremor in their hands? Here is a weighted cup to steady those hands. Is the patient paraplegic? Here are ways in which the patient can move from a bed to a chair or vice versa. Send them to me, she seems to be saying, and let me help them help themselves. But Parkinson's disease, for example, brings with it a heavy burden, both for the person affected by it and for the family. The disease is a degenerative one, and many decades after it was first identified, the cause is still unclear. The idea here is to help patients live with and manage their symptoms. The psychological problems are exacerbated by loneliness and withdrawal, adds Riddhi Patel. There is a stigma attached because the degeneration can be marked not just by mobility issues, but also by a change in facial expressions. So we have to provide a holistic rehabilitation program, including physiotherapy, of course, but also self-expression, art and dance, yoga and speech therapy. Count the number of therapists you will need to provide a full bouquet to people afflicted with different ailments. These things can multiply depending on what happens to you. My friend, the painter Jahangir Sabawala, had an operation when a lesion was found in his throat. When he recovered, I remember him telling me about a therapist who came to help him learn to swallow again. Truly, palliative care is an intersectional speciality. These roles, therapists, counselors, facilitators, often overlap, and sometimes mental health professionals will find themselves doing the work of social workers, and nurses will find themselves in the position of the quiet listener who allows the patient or the caregiver to unburden themselves.
Why communication matters. Communication is not just the life breath of palliative care. It also underlies the whole of medicine. Your body talks to itself all of the time. When you cough or sneeze, that's one part of the body telling another to expel an irritant. When you feel an itch, that's your body signaling the need to deal with a skin situation. And when your body talks to you in the form of pain, distress, or unease, that's your nervous system telling you that something is wrong. You then communicate this to your doctor, who must listen to you and decide what to do about it. Perhaps the doctor takes your temperature. That's your body talking. Communication mediated through a machine. Next, the doctor orders a battery of tests, and your body will now speak in the language of numbers. The doctor sorts through a personal database of information and experience and makes a diagnosis. This must now be communicated to you, and in many cases, it is as simple as taking your meds on time, adjusting your diet, taking some exercise, and getting enough sleep. In an increasingly competitive world where specializations and super specializations are much sought after, the general practitioner, the family physician, in their little clinic filled with patients who know each other, is under threat. Now, one might visit a clinic and meet doctors who only know what you tell them. The emphasis in this environment has been shifted to being a good diagnostician and being up to date with the pharmacological armory. Communication? How can that be of any importance between two complete strangers who may never see each other again? The worst moments come after diagnosis, says Ms. Poonam Bagai, a cancer survivor and founder of Can Kids, Kids Can, an NGO in New Delhi that offers comprehensive care to children with cancer. In a large hospital with so many patients, doctors might deliver difficult news like a cancer diagnosis and quickly move on to the next. The family is left in shock without the support that they need to process the information. There's no one to sit with them, offer comfort, or listen to their story, how they've been struggling, what steps they've already taken, and how they arrived at this point. Without emotional support, it's much harder for families to absorb the news or figure out what comes next. It is at this point that the palliative care team must come in to ease the stress of the moment. Communication is vital, and especially so with children, who are almost always kept out of the loop. Professor Julia Downing, Chief Executive of the International Children's Palliative Care Network, ICPCN, is an experienced palliative care nurse, educationalist, and researcher with a PhD in palliative care education. At the conference of the IAPC in 2024, she told the audience a story. Children who have been ill for a while have had the time to think about life and death. If they are in a ward for a while, they have seen children come and go, and some of those children have died. Among them, they have been friends. I remember a 12-year-old girl whose friend died one night. The next morning, the 12-year-old was asking everyone, the nurses, the doctors on the rounds, the cleaners, everyone, what had happened to the child. We met her later in the day, and when we told her that the child had died, she said that she had known this all along. So why were you asking? I just wanted to find out who would tell me the truth when my turn comes. There was silence in the room as many of the doctors there tried to absorb the maturity of this child.
When silence is not golden. I'm sitting in an office at Nimhans, Bengaluru, with a doctor and a young man from Tumkur. He has come with his 77-year-old father who has been diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. The doctor asked whether the family would like to tell him or whether she should tell the patient herself. The answer is no. Would they like to tell them then? Another flat no. Why not? Tension mein aayega. Do you think he's not tense now? The doctor tries again. Imagine you have an exam tomorrow, but you don't know what subject it is. How can you prepare for it? Just walk away, forget it. The young man says with a victorious smile. The doctor acknowledges defeat. The question often is, to whom should the doctor break the bad news? The answer should be simple. This is about the patient's body, and the patient has the right to know. Since this is news that will affect the family has the right to know too. This is called collusion. In medical terms, collusion refers to a situation where healthcare providers, patients, or their families withhold information about a diagnosis, prognosis, or treatment options, typically to protect the patient from distress. In many countries, particularly those that emphasize patient autonomy and informed consent, collusion is seen as problematic because it denies patients the right to know about their condition and make informed decisions about their care. But in India, we are a predominantly collectivist society where family plays a central role in decision-making, especially in healthcare. The well-being of the individual is often viewed as intertwined with that of the family. And so in practice, two things often happen here. Either the patient is told the news and asked that the family be kept in the dark, or the family is told the news and asked that the patient be kept in the dark. Whoever is given the bad news assumes that the others in the family will not be able to take it, says Dr. Vidya Vishwanath of Homi Bhabha Cancer Hospital and Research Center, Vishakhapatnam. They think they will have heart attacks and fall over and die. This is what we learn from cinema, at any rate. Modern medical ethics see collusion as bad for the patient, the family, and all the medical practitioners involved. Dr. Catherine Mannix writes in her book, With the End in Mind, How to Live and Die Well, 2017, it can be daunting for a family to discuss bad news. Sometimes if the bad news is broken only to the patient or only to a family member, that individual can find themselves with the burden of knowing a truth they dare not speak. This can lead to a whole conspiracy of silence that isolates people from each other's strength and support. It is possible to be lonely despite being surrounded by a loving family, as each person guards their secret knowledge for the love and protection of another. In a way, collusion means that you can avoid the difficult conversation in its entirety. But information like that can leak. Dr. Srinagesh Simha of Karunashraya tells us, the upside of letting the patient know is that weddings can be brought forward, or garlands exchanged, or at least an engagement can happen. But sometimes the patient is brought in so late that none of this is possible. By the time the doctors refer them to us, there's nothing much we can do other than keeping them comfortable, he says. If the patient does not know what is happening and that his care is in palliative mode, the expectations from the treatment may be unreasonable. This feeling that their health is finally improving because their pain is managed. But then someone, another patient or a caregiver at the institution, may ask innocently, "What cancer do you have?" This can come as a rude shock, but now there's nothing to cushion it. No time to plan for the days they have left. They miss out on dealing with the unfinished business of life. They can't say, make up with an estranged daughter. They can't go and meet the people they want to, or see their village one last time. Collusion hurts the patient the most. She's back.
Thank you so much for that, Soha. And where am I going to go? That was moving and beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time. Thank you so much for that. I would now like to invite on stage the author of A Good Life, Jerry Pinto. And to help us launch the book from the Veha Foundation, Mr. Hamid, and the founder of Veha Foundation and instrumental in the creation of this book, Romana Hamid.
That's it. Totally. Come.
I've got two.
My hero. My heroine.
You know what I told him when we came up? Totally googlied.
Can we have the books, please, for the launch?
Let's do the job first.
Sorry, I'm a miss. And Faye D'Souza, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's been a long day.
Thank you so much. But amidst us, there are many people who have worked in palliative care. Please stand up, guys. All of you who have worked in palliative care, over there, for instance. Come on, guys, stand up. Oh, Armida! Come on. A big round of applause. There they are. Turn around, look at them. My heroes. All of you. Nothing in this book would have been possible. This evening would not have been possible if it were not for all of you. Thank you all so much. If you wept at all, and if you were moved at all by those stories, it was because every day someone sits quietly and listens in a moment when there's deep pain. And because of that silence, because of that listening, changes something. A big round of applause to all of them. Thank you so much. And now, the launch. Upside down? Yay, here we go. Thanks.
The audience doesn't get a copy.
Oh, they will.
Thank you so much, Jim and Soha, for so graciously agreeing to being a part of the reading. And thank you, Ramana and Mr. Hamid, too. You can take your seats now. Soha and Jim, in case you would like to stay for the session, then. And now, the man of the moment, an author of extraordinary depth and range, he has given us unforgettable books like M and the Big Whom, Murder in Mahim, and The Education of Yuri, along with acclaimed poetry and powerful translations from Marathi, Hindi, and Konkani. His newest work, A Good Life, continues his remarkable ability to hold humor, pain, and humanity in the same sentence. Jerry Pinto. Jerry will be in conversation with someone who I hope forgives me very soon. An award-winning journalist who changed the way news is anchored in India. You know, when the noise gets loud, she brings clarity and much-needed sanity, replacing outrage with insight and opinion with truth. A fearless trailblazer and the youngest woman to helm a national news channel, she uses journalism to do what it should, make the world better. The inimitable Faye D'Souza. There will be a short 5-minute Q&A at the end of the session, so keep your questions handy. Over to you, Faye and Jerry.
Thank you so much. Full house, Jerry. This is a deeply moving book. I'm so grateful to Q for asking me to chair this session and not one about current affairs. Specifically, and I don't know if this is a coincidence, but I lost my dad 5 months ago. My dad, who was the soil to my roots and the sky to my branches. And for 5 months before he passed, I stood next to him in a hospital and watched him wither away. And so much of what is in this book spoke to me because I experienced it firsthand. All of it, the communication or the lack of it, the ICUs and the beeping and the fluorescent white lights of the hospital that finally winds up confusing not just the sick and the ailing person, but the entire family. And it's such a powerful book that before we start, and I was sitting through the previous session with the former Chief Justice and Mr. Shashi Tharoor. So I know that one was about intellect and thinking. I want you to key into your feelings for this one. This is less about intellect and thinking. This is more about feeling and tapping into that part of us that instinctively knows the difference between right and wrong as human beings. That's what this book is about. That's what palliative care is about, and that's why it's so beautiful. So having said that, we have volunteers in the room. If your phone rings, they will beat you with a book. Soha and Jim did such a beautiful job of introducing us to the tone of the book, I just want to read one small paragraph that introduces us to the idea of palliative care. What is palliative care? It is an inclusive approach to medical care for any serious illness at any age, right from the moment of diagnosis. Care that helps you to be as pain-free as possible, allowing you to find joy and peace amidst your journey. Care that keeps you and your family at heart. A true partnership between medical professionals, yourself, which accompanies you in your most difficult times. Jerry, first of all, thank you so much for this book. It's healing, and it healed me, I think, in some ways. But I want to understand from you, why did you write this book about palliative care?
Actually, I have to say that it wasn't my idea at all. It began with the death of Melli Gobhai, my friend, the painter, and he was a wonderful man. And, he left 1/4 of his entire estate to children's charities, because he knew that I was very invested in children while not having any of my own. So he said, and I began to ask people what I should do, and my friend Naresh Fernandez said, go and check out the Wadia Hospital, the Jarbai Wadia Hospital for Children. They have, they have a palliative care unit, and I went there. And one of the first things that happened was a morning that completely changed my life. I mean, in some ways, it softened and deepened things inside me, because it was a workshop on how to wash a dead baby. It was conducted with such dignity and grace. And this dignity and grace was being offered to someone who was dead, a child that was dead. It was so beautiful and so moving. I felt that there might be, I might want in some ways to know more about this. And then when I met Dr. Veronique Dinon, she said, I would really like money to fund a toy and book librarian to walk around my hospital and read stories to children. And I thought, my heart is breaking, because this is just, if you think about it for a moment, right? You're a kid in bed. You're locked there. Perhaps your leg is broken. Perhaps you've just been staring at the ceiling all day. No one has thought about what is happening behind your face, because they're all looking at what is happening in your bones. What is happening in your mind? That wonderful, bright, active mind of the child. How is it being engaged? And if you engage that mind, if you keep that child happy, laughing, thinking, perhaps the healing will be speeded up. Perhaps we'll have a happier ward. Perhaps there'll be fun for a moment in the life of a child who's locked in bed. Palliative care children want to go and sit for exams. That's what they want. They want to be normal. They want to have the pressures that other children are experiencing. They want to go back to the things that terrorize them, exams, because that's normalcy. To fund that, I had that moment when I could say, we can do this. We can make a kid happy. How much better does it get than that? And so we paid for this librarian, this toy and book librarian, and I walked with him around the wards. And I saw joy. Like, he walked into the cancer ward and he's treated like a rock star. Azoba, they shout. Okay? Yay, they shout. And this made me sure that there was something being done here that was so right. And then I remembered that Romana Hamid, whom I met, I think, at Tash and Inakshi's party, had actually asked one of my students to do a book on palliative care, and for one reason or the other, it had not worked. So I met her at that party and I said, are you still interested in a book on palliative care? And she said, yes. And I said, I'll do it. And then on the way home, I thought, I don't know anything about palliative care. But the great thing about being a journalist, Faye, you'll know this. We don't have to know. We just have to be humble and find out. And in the spirit of humility, I started talking to people, Dr. Armida Fernandez, who is here, Dr. Marianne Mukadan, women who just completely changed the way you think about how care needs to be given. It was just such a journey.
He really doesn't need me, but since I'm here. You've traveled across the country meeting with people who, you met with families, you met with patients, you met with doctors, but you met with palliative care givers. Are there stories, and I know there are hundreds, but stories that come to mind right now that you could share of extraordinary people doing extraordinary work?
I want to tell you this story actually about that chair. I want to tell you the story that it was like the one that began, and I actually wanted like someone to make a film of it, because it's this wild story, right? It starts with a matriarch. She has 4 sons. All 4 sons have a neurological disease. Okay, they're just obviously they're shaking, shivering, whipping their heads around, bumping their heads on the wall behind them, and she's trying her best to care for them, but she's getting old, she's got a back problem, because of her back problem, she's got a urinary problem, she's got infections, so she holds a meeting, and she says to them, it's time to decide whether we should live or die. Let's vote. She's Malayali. They're democratic. No fascisms there. Three of the sons vote for death, but there's one holdout. He says, no, I want to live. And she says, if there's one holdout, we will all live, however we can manage. These boys have been sitting up against a wall, okay? The wall is behind them, and they're thumping themselves on the wall, and the backs of their heads are bruised and bleeding. The first act of palliative care, so simple. Dr. Rajagopal got a mattress and put it behind them, and their heads healed. A simple act of care. One mattress. 3 people eased. To me, this, then when we went to visit them, almost everyone was gone. There was just one, the young man who voted for life. He was there in that room. And the palliative care team walked in. The driver of the vehicle got out and repaired the fan. Because if you're living in Kerala, a fan in the afternoon is the difference between a siesta and not sleeping at all. So someone repaired that fan. A neighbor turned up, Hussain Saab. Hussain Saab on his phone had every detail about this boy's condition and was telling the doctors about it. Everybody in that community was involved. Everybody was working to make sure this young man was still, and they had all asked. The doctors had said, let's take these people to a home. And they said, no. We want to stay here. And because patient autonomy is important, they were allowed to stay there. And it was made possible for them to stay there. And I came out of that small pokey house into the glory of a Kerala afternoon. Green and gold with water dripping, frogs in the well, the smell of petrichor in your nostrils. And I thought, this is real work. One mattress, one fan, one small adjustment at a time. We can make the world better. Such a great moment.
Back to me again. So in that little family, which you said was democratic, unlike the rest of us, the minority vote won. unlike the Supreme Court also. The thing I remember quite clearly when my dad was unwell was here was a person whose organs were failing one after the other, and we had a different doctor for every organ who were not talking to each other, right? And as his caregiver, I would have to make myself available every day from a certain point of time to a certain point of time, because these different organ doctors would show up on their rounds and give us different instructions. And you needed some patient advocacy to say, no, but the doctor in charge of kidneys has said this. And then they would. And when I finally, reached a point where I realized none of this was working, I called Dr. Rajgopal. I had the information. I knew what palliative care was, but I still could not fight the system because of the way the doctors would constantly recommend procedures that each of them knew they could do, but not necessarily procedures that the patient could withstand. I mean, just because you can do a procedure doesn't mean you should. And then Dr. Rajgopal said, stop describing organs to me. Tell me about the person. What is he doing? And here I needed somebody else to remind me to talk about the person I love most in the world as a human being. Because even as a family member, I started describing organs and data and blood pressure and, test reports. And you've said in your book very beautifully that communication, the beginning and the end of palliative care is communication. And that the medical fraternity needs to be a partner. Is it prepared to be a partner?
Everyone said, thoughtfully, because we've all had that moment with a doctor. We are also to blame. It's not just doctor. Do you mind if I get up?
No, please. I thought I would have you shoot off as soon as I finished.
I just feel constrained by that. Fundamentally, okay, if there is the collusion thing that, Jim read about, which is people not telling, ask yourself one simple question. Would you like to be told? Would you like to be told? Yes. Yes or no? Yes. You would like to be told, no doubt, with gentleness, with kindness, with information, in the right setting. But most of all, you want to know. And yet we think that we will protect someone by not telling them. How is that protection? How? There was one story that I was told about this man who when he got his diagnosis, he had 6 weeks left, and he was so angry with his family. He said, I don't want to meet anyone from my family for the next 2 weeks until I settle everything. Then I'll meet them. And he called his lawyers, and he called his accountants, and he called up his sister whom he had not spoken to for 30 years, and he apologized to her, and they wept over the phone. And when all that was done, he said, okay, now those idiots can come back. Because he still loved those idiots. Okay? So that's one of those fundamental questions. And that is at the bottom empathy. How would you like to be treated? Treat people the way you would like to be treated. If you want to know, then tell. You don't have to slap them in the face with the knowledge. But tell. Because people, even the weakest of us, have hidden reserves of strength and would like to be made strong and seen as strong. Because if you say to someone, you are strong, that person feels stronger. But if you say to that person, you're weak and you can't take this knowledge, that person feels weaker. Right? So for me, one of the things that I think happens with doctors and patients is that, as Shaw put it, George Bernard Shaw put it, we have made doctors, with all due apologies to the doctors here, Dr. Armida, Dr. Viba, we have made them into the new priests. We go with our confessions. Doctor, I've been smoking and not sleeping too much. And, I have stress life. And then there are pork chops, doctor. What can you do in the face of a pork chop? Or whatever, things like that. I mean, things that people say to doctors in this kind of and the doctor, again and again, feels that I will help. Come to me, all ye huddled masses. and I will refuse you visas. All that sort of thing goes on. So one of the things to do, I think, is to recognize that on that side of the table, behind the stethoscope and behind the white coat, is a flawed human being who might even be concealing a drug problem from you. You don't know, okay, right? They have access. They can write their own prescriptions. How does it get cooler than that, okay? So I'm saying, suppose we looked at doctors as buddies. We walked in and said, hey doc, how you doing? I think I'm ill, okay? And work hard at suppressing your desire to impress your doctor. Because that's the other thing. No doctor, I do. I sleep 9 hours a day minimum. And I work out 6 days a week minimum. Okay? You don't. You sleep 4 hours. You're on your phone for the rest of the time. But that's the thing. I think, if we all kind of made an effort, a strenuous effort to, okay, here's the thing. Okay, here, centrally. You're so important because nature made that one you and then broke the mold. Never again is there going to be anything so wonderful as you. And that's human rights at its fundamental basis. The you-ness of you is the most important thing. And that means no doctor, no super specialist who gives you an appointment when you have cancer at 3 in the morning. How is he staying awake? Okay? Anyway, that doctor and you have the same value in the world. If we could accept this, that there is no human being more important than the other. If we could accept this somewhere deep down, see like a complete change, not just in your health, but in the way you deal with the world. The world. That's the secret. So simple. That you were told so long ago that your body, your thumbprint, your DNA, your blood, all these shared by everyone in humanity, that same outline is shared, but you're still special. You hang on to that. You walk into the doctor's room thinking, I'm the expert on my body as much as you because I've lived inside here. You've not. But I want to know what you think also.
Please drink water.
Please wrap up.
Okay.
They said, please wrap up. No
Not
question.
to me, they didn't say. So the joy of Jerry Pinto is that this rock star room where you're all laughing and clapping and we're talking about death. A subject matter that as Indians we particularly avoid discussing unless we absolutely have to. Although I do recommend that while there is a toy and book librarian in the children's ward, maybe a pork chop and Vindaloo librarian.
We would have to make a vegetarian one. Faye, just because the two of us are here on stage. Yeah, but when you read about these, I read a lovely piece, about this person in St. Christopher's Hospice. She is an old lady who runs the alcohol trolley. She wheels it around the hospice saying, anyone care for a gin and tonic, darling? I'm thinking, as far as joy goes, it doesn't get better than this. But of course, we'd have like a, but I would say, these people are going. You're going to worry about them getting addicted. Yeah, sure. Okay. But on the other hand, what I'm saying is, okay, here's the thing. You think you're not involved. right? That's where the problem also lies. In your building, there is an ill person. How about you go visit? How about you just drop in and say, hey, if anyone needs to take a break, I'll sit for half an hour. I'll sit for an hour or two. You go see a film and come back. Yeah? Because when something bad happens, people say, tell me what I can do. And the bereaved person or the ill person can't think, but if you say, hey, I know you must be doing 20 different things right now. How about I take over, like bringing one dal sabzi every second day? I'll bring a dal sabzi every second and then do it. Huh? You can Swiggy also. You probably get better dal sabzi outside than your dal sabzi also, possibly. So, but make sure you follow through. That is really palliative care, when everybody feels involved. That because today, if there's no illness in my family, that doesn't mean that it's not happening tomorrow. Right? And if we can all be involved, and in some ways, throughout these little lifelines, say something. Even like if you can't cook or whatever, you can go and sit with that person and please don't say, how are you feeling? Because they're feeling like shit. Okay? But you can just be there for them. Yeah? I mean, kindness is like so vital. It's such a force. And we do not actively just decide to be kind. Just to be kind for a little while. So much is helped. Okay?
I was going to say, don't sit down, but okay. So I do hope that all of you will read the book. For those of us who are on the correct side of 40, the font is very helpfully large. You did talk about what you want all of us to do, which is kindness, which will really get sparked from this book. But it's also, you've also talked here about caregivers, family members who spend their days working, earning, cleaning the house, and caring, and how palliative care also includes caregivers.
And really, it's about women here. Most of the time, it's about women. It's about, someone falls ill, and the daughter-in-law of the house, the daughter, the sister, the mother, it's just put on her plate as one more thing that she has to do. Aur tu banayegi na diabetic khana uske liye, separate khana uske liye. She has to not only figure out her timing, she has to figure out the pots and pans, she has to figure out the time required, she has to figure out the economy of the thing, where's she going to get all this stuff, all that is her job, right? And the job, when it is done well, it vanishes, because everyone comes and visits and the patient is lying there and the bed sheets are clean and the room is smelling fresh and everything's great. And then they say, they don't even actually most of the time say she's doing a good job. But they come in and one thing is missing. The sunflower was withered. She had a sunflower and it was withered. I was thinking of Fan Kok, dying sunflower. How sad that a poor sick person has to tolerate that dying sunflower. Give over, do, right? Okay. So I think when people are in and caregiving is kind of everybody's job, but it is women's job most of the time, because the kids, first of all, you're caregiving, the old people caregiving, the animals caregiving. They will con you into having a dog, but then you will clean up after the dog. They are not doing the dog thing or taking the dog for a walk. I got exams, yeah. How will I take the dog? You take the dog now. Okay, that kind of stuff. So it's always the women who have to do it, and then they're made guilty when they feel burnout. Because there's a moment when you want to say, you say inside your head, perhaps, why don't you just die? Okay? And you don't mean it, and you mean it at the same time. It's horrible, because then you hurt yourself with the guilt. You hurt yourself with condemnation, with self-condemnation. How could I even think that? You could think that because you have been worn out by the stress of it. If you thought it ever, I know I thought it about my mother. Forgive yourself. Let it go. It was a thought. We are human. We think things. We can let them go, we can forgive ourselves because we are also human. Forgive yourself, let it go. And understand that part of it is because we need to be able to reach out and say, help me. And then we need to be able to say concretely, this is how you can help me. Because most of the time, if you tell a man, help me, he says, I'll write a check. If you're lucky with your friends. Because that's the easy thing to do. Write the check and finish it. But don't ask me for time and attention and silence and stuff like that. If you have women friends, you're probably luckier. They're likely to show up for you. But they've probably got their own stuff going on as well, right? It's just very complicated. We are all busy. I understand that. And caregiver burnout is normal. It's natural. It's part of being human. And if we didn't feel it, it would be because we don't care enough. Because when you care, you're vulnerable and everything is an abrasion. So someone, you're tucking the bed sheets in and the person who's ill says, can't you do it gently? And you think, trying to do it as gently as I can. But then you say, deep breath, I'll try. And you do it, but there's rage inside you. And that rage makes you so sad that you could feel rage about this person. It's so complicated. We need those support groups. We need people to know that they're not alone.
We're going to open this up for a Q&A, but what I learned about help and asking for help is that in that burnout moment where you actually call someone out of desperation, the person you call almost always takes it as a compliment that you thought of me. I'm so happy you thought of me. I'm so happy you're going to give me a chance to help. And I think that we forget that in our own desperation, that there are people who will help. We just have to remember to ask. Questions? Can we take questions from the audience?
The thing is, ask me anything, say anything you want. Don't worry about it. No one will judge you. No one will remember, okay? People are now already planning dinner. And this is Bombay audience, so people are saying 8:43, Andheri local, miss ho jayega abhi ye. Kitna late hai. I know all that shit. So don't worry about, ask anything you feel like, feel free. If you want to ask Faye a question, please feel free as well. Romana's here. If you'd like to ask her a question, you can feel free. Mr. Hamid is here. He'll answer questions in his own completely delightful way. The first time I met him, he said to me, do you know what intraocular devices cost? So I said, no, sir, I don't know. He said, 1.5 lakh per year. I want to bring 2 devices and break them and see what's inside them. Can't we make them cheaper? And I thought, I love you. I absolutely love you. Someone who just wants to who's actually thinking there, let's go make these things cheaper. That's my kind of guy. And that was the joy of working on this book as well. Take a bow, Mr. Hamid. Okay. Yeah.
All right.
The first time I heard him, and after that I said, I went up and I hugged him because of that, and he said, what is this theatrical stuff? Okay, I said, but that's me. Chal, you
okay,
have, who,
raise your hand. We're running out of time, so we're going to do this quick.
Yeah.
Over there.
Yeah, ask.
Down the middle.
I don't know, I heard
Just
a voice.
Stand up, sir. The mic will come to you.
Hey, Griffin, bolo.
Hey, Jerry Papa, you
Hi.
made me cry in the middle of NCPA, man. Anyway, just thank you for this book, Jerry.
Thank you
so much.
Yeah.
And just back to you because this is your day, man.
Lovely. Thank you, Peter. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Sorry,
Yes.
I heard a brief either in the introduction to the book earlier. So there is a sentence where you said pain, you don't have an option, but suffering is a choice. So I just...
Okay. Pain is actually evolutionarily decided it's your best friend. Okay? If you don't feel pain, what happens is, for instance, you can walk on an ankle that is broken and keep on walking on it until that broken ankle becomes cancer of the bone, and then pain comes roaring back suddenly. There are people who are born without the ability to feel pain. So, little boys who have been made to jump from the 3rd floor just to demonstrate that they are pain-free. That poor boy eventually jumped and died. right? So pain is there as a way to help you understand. It's your body talking to you. So pain is inevitable, because if it were not inevitable, we would be in trouble. But suffering is not inevitable. You may feel physical pain, but if someone is there to understand it, to help you with it, to say, it is all right, I've been there before, to say, let me understand what you are feeling, to say, can I take the children to school on your behalf, to say, let's try fentanyl, or let's try some other kind of drug if this isn't working. If there is someone to do that, then suffering is not inevitable. But suffering often happens because as a society, we lack empathy. And especially, we lack empathy for the ill. Susan Sontag says beautifully in Illness as Metaphor, we all have two citizenships. One is in the citizenship of the land of the healthy. One is in the citizenship of the land of the ill. And you can move from one to the other. I saw an Instagram reel on when a gentleman said, who was physically challenged, he said, we are a nation of disability, and you can get citizenship on one bad bike ride. One bad motorbike ride and you can join our ranks. Yeah? So I think pain is not just inevitable, pain is a friend. Leprosy-afflicted patients sometimes burn because the nerves are no longer sending messages to the brain. So you can't move your leg out of the fire. So pain is inevitable because it's good for you. But suffering doesn't have to be inevitable. Suffering is a human choice that we can all do something about. Yeah? That's it.
Yeah, we have completely run out of time. Jerry, thank you so much.
I normally end sessions by saying, go and buy the book. I'm not saying that this time. This book is super special. If you need it, it will happen to you. It will come your way. If you don't, there is no need to buy it. I'm saying you should buy it. I believe you should buy it, but I'm not encouraging it. I'm not doing my normal road show. I'm saying this book is really special to me. You go buy it if you're going to read it. And then when you've read it, let me know. Thank you so much for being a wonderful author.